This is The Becoming, a podcast about the sacred and powerful journey of awakening and becoming who you truly are.
We're your hosts, Kate and Judy Moon. As a mother-daughter duo with many years of experience in coaching and personal transformation and lifetimes of wisdom between us, together we explore what it truly means to come alive, living with deeper meaning and purpose, breaking generational chains, reclaiming freedom, and guiding the soul's return to wholeness.
Through soulful conversations about healing, transformation, and the power of MDMA-assisted therapy, along with raw, behind-the-scenes reflections and insights that illuminate the path forward, we invite you into a journey that's not just about healing your past. It's about breaking through the invisible barriers that have kept you stuck and finally stepping into the life you've always known you were meant for.
Whether you're in the middle of a heartbreak, an awakening, a breakdown, or a breakthrough, you're not alone. This is The Becoming.
So if you have been around the block in the world of personal development for a minute, you've probably heard about the concept of a secondary gain, which really is about what benefit are we receiving by engaging in a behavior or an action that we might see as self-sabotaging. So this is the topic that we want to dive into today and really explore together.
So what if, Kate, what if a secondary gain actually was a call for safety? That it actually is not self-sabotage, that it's actually not something that we're intentionally doing so that we don't have to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But what if we are literally protecting ourselves, finding safety by actually not taking that action that we're trying to force ourselves to take, but that we're not doing it? And then we beat up on ourselves. We self-flagellate because we're blaming ourselves that we're not doing something we've said we were going to do. I mean, how many times shall we be completely honest that we've been in that position?
Right.
Honestly, with things that, like in our business or even in our personal life, but I would say much more in the work that we do, that we have felt like that we are self-sabotaging because we haven't done something that we said that we wanted to do.
There's a narrative that we are lazy, that we're self-sabotaging, that we just can't seem to get ourselves moving. And we want to turn this whole concept on its head, because it's not to say that it's not of value to ask the question of, what am I getting out of this? Is there a secondary gain that I am getting by either continuing to do the thing that I know is not really healthy for me, or not do the thing that I know would change it all for me? And what we're really suggesting here is that underneath the secondary gain is always a need for safety. Always.
It's always a need for safety. So what if a secondary gain truly is always about safety? That it's not about beating up on ourselves, that we're not doing something for some unconscious reason. The unconscious reason actually is it doesn't feel safe.
Right.
So for an example, how many years, Kate, how many years ago did we start talking about starting a podcast?
I think that you and I have been talking about starting a podcast for 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
Talking about it. And then probably
chit-chatting about it.
The last 4 years, we kept saying, we really need to do this. We really should have a podcast, which wasn't the conversation of we would really like to have a podcast, even if there was maybe a part of us that said, yeah, we actually really would love to have a podcast. But it was more of a shoulding rather than like a real desire. And there was a lot of resistance for a very long time.
Well, and that's why we were shooting ourselves, because if we actually committed to it, then we would have to hold ourselves more accountable to that.
Right.
So it's kind of like this fantasy of like, yeah, let's, we should have a podcast. That's what we should do. And so it made us feel like we're still in the game.
Right.
Like we hadn't not decided. We hadn't necessarily decided.
We were always going to start a podcast. So it was just got to stay.
We were always in the going.
It got to stay in this like lovely delusional fantasy land that's just slightly out of reach in front of us, but it's going to happen at some point.
Because it didn't imply that we actually had to take action on it today. Or even tomorrow. It was just like, oh, in the future, but in the near future, but we kept on pushing it out. And so if we unpack what was going on truthfully for both of us, and perhaps individually had different reasons, but collectively, I think I will speak for myself that once a podcast is actually out into the world, that leaves me feeling really vulnerable. And vulnerability is really scary.
Vulnerable to criticism.
Yeah. I mean, anybody out there, anybody could be listening and anybody could say something bad about me.
They can criticize, they can tear us down. It opens us up to a whole world of potential pain that doesn't feel safe.
And we might unconsciously bring back old memories of times that we have done something that was maybe very public and we felt very naked and vulnerable and felt a little bit even ashamed, perhaps, like we had made a mistake or whatever. I mean, we're going back to childhood stuff too.
And notice that all of the benefits don't come into play of like, oh, we could really get our work out into the world. We could really help a lot of people. We could really touch some incredible lives. Like that isn't.
We had all the blinking, flashing lights of no, don't do that. You just may die.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all of this really comes back to the survival brain and to the nervous system. And if we don't feel safe, we will continue to run the same patterns unless we bring a new experience of safety into our body somatically.
And, here's the thing, Kate, for so many years, how many years, and I know in the whole personal development world, everybody knows about affirmations. And we just like, okay, so change your thoughts, change your life. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that. However, what I do know to be true is you cannot just slap a big fat affirmation on a nervous system that doesn't feel safe.
Absolutely.
It's going to like stop it. There's no way that affirmation is going to have any impact because it needs to be somatic. We need to know it in our body. The safety needs to be there first.
And truly, in the training that we received as coaches, we were told that doing the archaeological dig had no value.
Zero. Don't do it. It's a waste of time.
Don't do the excavation.
And so,
your childhood doesn't have anything to do with this.
It doesn't have anything to do with like what kind of action you are taking today or not.
And it doesn't escape me that out of that training that we received 13 years ago, I think I could count on one hand the people from a room of 200 that are still doing this work.
The work that we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, you and I have had to evolve our work deeply in order to continue to do what we're doing, but it's also because what we always have held very sacred is that we can't take our clients any further than we have been willing to go ourselves. And in our own quest to really crack the code and figure this thing out and to be of service and to bring our gifts to the world, we have had to reevaluate. Do we actually need to do more of the archaeological dig than we were told?
So
actually, yes.
Yeah. So is it really true that your childhood doesn't matter necessarily?
That it doesn't have any bearing on your success as an adult in a new venture?
Yeah. And what I'm going to say is that, sure, can we leave some childhood stuff behind us? Sure.
We would hope so.
But not trauma. Right. Trauma lives in the body.
It does.
The body keeps the score. The body keeps the score.
The body keeps
always,
the score.
Always, always, always. And we will not do and act and make a new decision and, speak up, speak out if we don't feel safe,
Right.
if there's an existential threat. So here we are, so back to secondary gains.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I still believe that there's a tremendous amount of value in this conversation,
in the consideration, in the question.
in the question, as long as we keep this question a trauma-informed
Yeah.
exploration.
For example, a client recently shared
Mhm.
a meme via a text after a call that we all had
A group
together,
coaching
a group
call. Yeah.
coaching call. And she was calling herself out, like something about like her playing small.
Like, I know I'm not available to play small
Nope,
anymore. I don't
not,
want to do
not
that. I'm not,
anymore. Not anymore. And
on the surface, there's nothing wrong with that. You might
no,
like, go girl, like
you,
I see you.
well, and in the past, over the years past, 13 years ago, I said,
Yeah.
yeah, you got
Look
this.
at you. You're claiming your power and your
Yes,
worth.
yes.
We see
So
this differently now,
we
though.
we see it differently now
More
because
like, not that we don't believe in that, but we see what that is
what the
communicating,
what the underbelly is.
what that share is demonstrating in her belief about herself.
So let's just think about it for a minute. So if I am feeling like I'm playing small, I would say there's some blame and absolutely some shame in that, because playing small is a no-no in this industry. We've heard so many times that playing small is the death of us.
Mm-hmm.
The death of anything, a vision, a dream, anything that we're creating.
You don't want to be the internet's best kept secret.
No,
No more playing
no
small.
more
Get out
playing.
there
Get
and
out
get
there and
big
just,
and visible and get on stages and grab the mic. Take your seat at the table.
yeah, right. And so
By
definitely,
all means, do all of those things. However,
exactly. However, and so I lovingly messaged her back and I just said, could it be that you're actually really not playing small, that you have not been playing small, that actually what's been going on is how you've managed your life over these years is that you stayed safe, that you've done what you had to do in order to be safe. Not that you're playing small, not that that there's shame involved. No, you were actually brilliant. As a little girl, you learned how to stay safe. And how that might have looked out to the outside was not advocating for yourself, or maybe even a little self-sabotaging, or just kind of staying quiet, or,
fading into the
fading
background,
into
fading
the
into the
background.
wallpaper so that
Yeah.
maybe you weren't seen, because maybe when you were seen, things that were not safe occurred when you were seen, when you were underfoot, when you suddenly the eyes of the person in the room cast themselves on you and, oh, I'm not safe.
So why on earth would you ever want to be big,
Be seen.
be seen, be acknowledged in that way? It's not safe. So these are the nuances to really consider when we consider a trauma-informed perspective. And I don't know a single soul who has not had some trauma in their lives,
Yeah, whether it's the big T trauma or
or
the
this,
little T trauma.
or a combination of
Yep.
all of it.
Yep. Particularly in the culture that we have. We've talked about Dr. Gabor Mate on this podcast before, and people have asked him, like, does anyone escape this childhood thing unscathed from trauma? And he says, like, honestly, not really in our modern day world.
Well, and I'm just going to say, Kate, you and I have been doing a lot of reading and a lot of historical reading.
Mm-hmm.
And we've both agreed that history was brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, we think it's brutal today, and we look at families and we can see the dysfunction, or we don't see the dysfunction. It's all being hidden. There's so much of that. So much of that. I just know that to be true.
This has been for millennia. Millennia.
I mean, can we say it's maybe like human beings? It's the human
It's the
condition.
human condition.
And, trying to make sense out of that. I mean, my mind always goes to like, so why, why must we do this? And the closest that I've ever gotten is that there's something bigger here. and that it's the soul, it's this infinite spirit that's within each of us that come into this human experience. And where we really learn the lessons and learn the most and grow the most is through pain.
Welcome to Earth School.
Welcome to Earth School.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do believe that that is part of how our souls are evolving is they're cast into Earth School and put through a lot of trials and tribulations. And that is how we grow and how we learn. I believe that this conversation that we're inside of is part of the awakening. I believe that.
No, I do too, Kate. Honestly.
And I know that the healing work that you and I do, that
Oh,
story of guy walking on the beach and the tide had brought in a whole
mm,
bunch of starfish that are now stranded on the beach, and he's walking along the beach and he's picking one up and he's tossing it back into the ocean and continuing on his walk and picking one up and tossing it into the ocean, and someone comes up and says, "What are you doing? What difference can you even make?" And he said, "Well, it made a
mm,
difference for that one."
yeah.
So I really do believe that every single person that takes the reins of their own healing is that one starfish. And I do believe that it is a cumulative effect, and I do believe that it's a ripple effect, that the more that we step into it ourselves, we become the examples, and it blesses the people around us. I have very rarely seen lasting change happen through self-blame, through criticism, through beating ourselves up, through self-flagellation. True lasting change and really real deep healing always occurs through bringing more love and compassion
Mhm.
to ourselves. And that's really what we are inviting you into here today, is to reframe the things that you desire to do, whether that means that you desire to stop doing something or you desire to start doing something, to reframe this as from a place of deep compassion rather than beating yourself up.
And the truth of it too, Kate, is that, I think many of us would love to have the people that have been in our lives that have been hurtful and have had an impact in our own trauma, that we secretly wish that they would come to us and just say, "Oh, I'm so, so sorry. I finally see.
I see the light. I
I
see what
see
I
the
did.
light that I have been, a hot mess in your life, and I take full responsibility." Well, the truth of it is that is just not going to happen. And so it becomes our job. And so this is what the self-awareness is all about, that we become empowered when we become aware
Mhm.
of how we participated in relationships that where we self-abandoned,
Mhm.
where we did not speak our voice, where we pretzeled ourselves around somebody else to stay safe, and where we have blamed ourselves that we've done that.
Right.
But instead, what we're asking or inviting all of our audience and ourselves to do
Yeah.
is to actually cast a kind glance and a soft heart to those of us that are just learning how to navigate and survive in this world. And that once we become more aware, then we actually can make those changes.
Exactly.
And it's not about somebody, it's nobody else's work to do except our own. We have to own our own self-worth. And we do that by casting again that kind glance to those little beings that were hurt, and know that we just did it out of survival. But now today we can make a new choice.
It doesn't escape me that we finally were able to pull the trigger on this podcast, on launching this podcast, a good year into the deepest healing work that you and I have ever been engaged with. This is not our first rodeo. We've been at this for a long time, but over this last year has been a deepening in this healing journey and bringing so much self-love and compassion, but also a lot of nervous system healing and nervous system
I
regulation.
was going to say healing, Kate. Yeah.
It doesn't escape me that suddenly it became much more of like, okay, here's the list of all the things that we need to do to get this podcast going. Let's just start working through them one at a time. The level of drama dropped from like 150 down to like, 15 or 20, depending on the
on
day.
the day. I know.
And it really became inevitable that we were starting this. And it really wasn't so dramatic. And it speaks so much to when we handle the core issue underneath it within
Within ourselves.
ourselves from a place of healing, again, not beating ourselves up, then and we go to the core of why this fear, why the quote unquote self sabotage is, then it can just naturally dissolve. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I was going to say, so we can bring that, but it's not even a thinking
It's
process.
not thinking at all.
No,
This was in our body. This was,
it's not like I changed my mind about it. It's that my body, the soma, it changed.
it's an embodiment.
It softened. It wasn't the fear response or whatever was there.
Yeah.
It just made it doable.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain, but it was not something, we surely didn't place a big fat affirmation on that thing.
No.
No, we didn't even talk about
We
it.
didn't even talk about it. We just started actually doing it.
So we just
It was
changed
like,
our behavior.
now is the time to start the podcast.
Yes.
Great. Like this is the week that we get started on this. And then
Okay,
we
so
actually
we're
just
gonna do
did.
this, and this.
Yeah.
And we just started taking action, and it wasn't like this big
It
drama.
wasn't so dramatic.
Yeah.
We've seen this with things like people's addictions as well.
Yeah.
Where something that has been ruling your life, whether it is alcohol, whether it's food, whether it's an addiction to busyness, it could be an addiction to sex. I mean, they're all different types of things that we as human beings get addicted to. There is so much deep shame wrapped up in addiction. Addiction is deeply misunderstood. And the addiction is never about the substance or about the behavior that's being engaged in. It's always a survival strategy to numb the incredible amount of pain that someone is in. Even if that pain is somewhat subconscious, they might not even be aware of what the pain is really about, but they have found that that is the best strategy that they have in order to numb themselves from the pain.
They learned it once. The first time, whatever
that worked.
That behavior, engaging in that behavior, and somatically, their body relaxed.
Yes.
And it responded to the drug or whatever behavior it was, and it learned how to take care of itself. Actually, how destructive these safety mechanisms we find can be if we don't become aware of them.
And that's when we realize that something that we're engaging with is actually ruining our lives. But again, just to say, so what's the secondary gain that you're getting? Oh, you're just say that you are quote unquote playing small. Well, actually, maybe what you're doing is you're avoiding the deepest rejection, the deepest pain. So again, it doesn't serve to go to this place of shaming and blaming the individual, because that's exactly why the behavior exists in the first place, is because of shame and blame. So we can't shame and blame our way out of it.
And you can't actually think your way out of it. It's like someone says, okay, on Monday morning, I'm starting that diet. Mm-hmm. Monday morning, up until maybe noon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everything's going great. And then everything falls apart.
This would be called white knuckle sobriety.
Yeah. It never works. And you cannot white knuckle yourself to the healing process.
You cannot. The example that we always give, that's such a good one, that is such a great visual for me personally, is imagine taking a beach ball and you're standing in the middle of a swimming pool, and it's possible to take that beach ball and push it under the surface of the water for a time with your willpower, that you can take your focus and you can push it down and you can hold it there.
And your strength.
And you can keep it there for a while. But eventually you're either going to get tired, you're going to get exhausted, or you're going to get distracted, and that beach ball is going to pop right back up.
Yeah. Rearing its ugly head. Yes. So we'd like to offer you some reframes. So what need did this pattern once protect, perhaps? Why was it brilliant? Why was that pattern brilliant?
Mm-hmm. How did this pattern actually serve your survival? And how is it perhaps still serving your survival?
That's a really important question. And then from there, because many of us are asking this question from an adult awareness. So if this pattern is still in process, what might I need to do or even say to be able to find some more safety and not self-abandoned?
Typically, we're not self-abandoning just because it's really fun. We're doing it because we needed to in order to survive in some way. We needed to self-abandon. We needed to give up something that was important to us. I mean, a lot of this could be the fawning that is very typical in our whole world of somehow pleasing someone else in order to stay safe. And we then had to self-abandon in order to please that person.
And often we don't have a voice. We don't know how to communicate, because if we really communicated what was our truth, then that would be not safe.
Right.
That would be unsafe
Right.
to communicate that. So we've learned to keep quiet. And so and for me, I might ask myself, so is perhaps now might be the time that I learn how to speak my voice and really question, am I still unsafe? It might just be a pattern that I keep on repeating and keep on repeating that has become my self-image. Who I believe myself to be as someone who doesn't confront, even though I'm uncomfortable about it, even though I want to confront, but it's become such a pattern. So what if maybe I might consider, do I really actually need to stay silent in this situation still? Maybe it's time for me to speak out.
And we begin to exercise a new agency. It doesn't happen overnight, and it might be quite imperfect, but it's one moment at a time that we do it, that something occurs and we say, "Ooh, I'm speaking up here. I'm just going to start practicing." It doesn't need to be this
One
perfection
or this great big, announcement to your family or to your spouse or to anybody.
You just start exercising more of that muscle.
More agency. And that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
Is really reclaiming what we gave up at one time for safety and deciding and thinking, and feeling, no, I have agency and I've demonstrated it in my life here, here, and here. And so this is where we start building this new muscle of self-confidence. No, I can do this because I actually really am safe.
We start to build self-trust.
Yeah, we do.
So one question that we can also use to shift that self-blame and self-criticism that we typically might ask ourselves, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Why can't I stick to my diet? Why can't I stop pouring that glass of wine at 5 p.m.?
Other people do.
Other people do. What's
wrong with me?
Why can't I just get out there online and start sharing my message? Why can't I? What's wrong with me? We shift the perspective to what happened to me? What might have happened to me where I took it on that somehow this is safer for me, that this is a better survival strategy?
And approaching it, Kate, with compassion.
Yes.
With compassion, self-compassion. And that brings healing.
Yeah.
When we can really feel it and see what really occurred.
Yeah.
It's that concept of really reparenting our little girl or our little boy, that we go to that child and say, honey, I get it. It was tough and you've just been surviving, but we can do this together. Like, I've got your back.
Because the thriving really is ultimately available, but the thriving doesn't happen until we do the deep work of the healing.
So the bottom line really is that what if, all these thoughts of, secondary gains or, self-sabotage and the things that we've beat up on, really criticize ourselves about engaging in, what if it literally is all about safety? Everything's about safety. It's, Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Safety is number one, and we will never self-actualize by any means unless we are safe.
our body couldn't care less about self-actualizing if it's in a survival state. If it's triggered in some deep nervous system way, it couldn't give one what about self-actualization.
That is so far down the line,
It is
like,
so far down the line.
no, and I mean, it's literally the body always keeps the score. We have to stay safe. We have to stay alive in order to be in this human form.
The funny thing is that it's true about our nervous system that the body doesn't really know the difference between getting up in front of an audience of 1,000 people with a mic or being chased by tiger. It has the same physiological response.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
And so living in this modern world that we live in, we really aren't under the same threats that ancient man was, but our nervous system doesn't know it.
It doesn't know the difference.
It doesn't know the
It
difference.
doesn't know the difference. It has not evolved enough to know the difference.
It hasn't
No, because that's survival.
it is survival.
It's the way it works.
It's
It's the way the body works.
It's our reptilian, it's our limbic brain, and it is our nervous system, which has so much intelligence to it. But what we've really found is that the deep healing allows us to work with our nervous system and with this reptilian brain and the amygdala, as we've talked about in other episodes, the fear center of our brain, versus just being at the whim of it and having it blow us left and right, and we don't have any agency to actually create what's important to us.
It really is learning how to bypass that survival reflex, the amygdala, that is going to stop us in our tracks every time.
But it doesn't need to anymore.
It doesn't need to.
Healing is available.
It is available. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us in this week's episode, all about secondary gains and survival patterns. We really appreciate you being here with us, and we can't wait to continue the conversation with you next week.
Ciao for now.
Ciao for now.
Thank you so much for listening to The Becoming.
We'd love for you to join our growing community. Please subscribe to the podcast, share this episode with a friend, and leave a 5-star review.
It truly means the world to us and helps others to find their way here too. We'll see you in the next episode.